Is the market rally over? And will Bitcoin continue its climb into the ETF approvals? Let's jump in, take a look at what is going on. We've had a lot of market action here today and lately, but the markets are reversing a week, I think 7 or 8 days of straight upward green candles in traditional markets, but currently about 15 minutes to close, markets are down almost 1% across the board. NASDAQ down 1%, 0.84 on S&P, 0.69 on the Dow, because Jay Powell came out and said that the Fed is not confident it has done enough to bring down inflation. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said he and his colleagues remain steadfast in getting policy in line with their 2% inflation goal. We are not confident that we have achieved such a stance. He stressed the Fed nevertheless can be cautious as the risks between doing too much and too little have come closer into balance. So very interesting conversation for Powell today. On another note, his speech was interrupted by climate protesters. And as they removed them from the room, Powell said, thank you very much. And then after the camera goes off, his mic is still hot and you can hear him say, just close the effing door. So Jerome Powell is human after all, and he had quite enough with the climate change activists interrupting his speech today. It was pretty funny. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with Bitcoin right now. Now, Bitcoin's been on an uptrend since basically October 23rd on ETF approval news. So it was kind of ranging in this lower level of that 25 to 28,000 range, then had a nice little pop on rumors that the ETF approval was imminent. And especially here today, there was a rumor that there's a window that's been open between now and November 17th that the Fed could approve the ETF. Even if it gets approved, launch, time frame is a little bit different, basically operating in this channel, which typically this is going to be a bear flag type of channel, kind of like you see in this area here. But in this case, it broke up above that channel and is now kind of playing with it above it right now, but has rejected on it a little bit. If you jump out to the hourly, you can kind of see it's finding support right on the upper level of that channel. Depends on if you go with the closes or the wicks. You could write it draw it a couple of different ways. You could really perform some chart crimes in here and do all kinds of different things. But bottom line is, this has been a channel that typically you would see, the price action kind of fall below into a bear flag. But with that ETF approval rumors, it definitely broke out, and all of crypto land followed with it. BlackRock has apparently filed for an ETH ETF. So ETH was up on the news, but it's just been following Bitcoin, as have all of the large cap alts, which everything is reversing on all of the news that the approval is not coming, probably won't come until next year. But speculators and market makers, whales are definitely putting news out and trying to take advantage of that and making some move. Also, a lot of people were short. And right now with Bitcoin in this momentum, again, this was a bear flag, so you could expect price to break through the bottom half of it at some point. But, shorting Bitcoin in these areas has always been a fool's errand, because you just get liquidated constantly, especially down in this area. This was a good area potentially to be shorting. The RSI, well, not a good area to short when the RSI is down on the lower end of the channel, but up in this area will be a good area to short. And again, doesn't take much to manipulate the price and liquidate those shorts before you return back to the bottom of the channel, which is 27,000, and which is most likely the probable action is for Bitcoin to kind of return and just kind of bounce along in this channel for a while until the ETF is approved, unless something happens in the traditional markets. But generally, this area up in here is not a bad call to short when the RSI gets overbought like it does in these areas, and the long when it's oversold in these areas as well. But again, you start getting out there with leverage in long and shorts, it's easy to liquidate those positions. Sol has been the big winner of this. Sol was up 3 or 4x, I think, overall from this move from $14 up to $48. So, Sol has made a nice little move here off of this range. If you go back to that, even back to last year, but, June of this year, from this June low of this year, or even the September low of $17 up to the $48, that's a pretty good move for Sol. I think that's been the leader in terms of gains here. Matic jumping from 50 cents to 85 cents, not huge. Let me see, what else was it? I think it was Litecoin, not Litecoin. It might have been Filecoin that had a nice little move from $3 all the way up to $4.60. So that's not too bad. Link was another one. Yeah, Link's the one I was looking at. So Link went from $5, popped up to $16. So you had a 3x on Link after this long consolidation here, but could have gotten to that anywhere in this area here back in September and got a nice little 3x out of it right there. So a lot of interesting price action. Let's take a look at the markets right here on the daily. And as you can see, had a nice little rebound. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 days in a row of green candles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight days up. Now price has been rolling over here the last couple of days. This is the Dow right here. If we put, let's look at the NASDAQ. We have the NASDAQ right here, same thing. Nice little rally, rolling back over there. S&P extended rally. A lot of people weren't expecting price action to reach these levels like they did as fast as they did over the last week. That was a pretty violent reaction there in terms of a rebound from this low here back in October. This is the Qs and the Russell, of course, coming off of these lows that were set, into last year. VIX getting a little bit of a bounce here. The Dixie getting a little bit of a bounce. 2-year getting a bounce. 10-year getting a bounce. And that's one thing there with this 10-year. That was putting a lot of pressure on the markets at the 5% level, dropped all the way down to 4.489. A little relief for the markets, but getting a bounce back into that 4.6, headed back up to the 5% range based on Powell's comments. And no bid in the Treasury markets today. Had a very awkward bond auction, apparently. A lot of different reasons for that. So right now, all eyes on Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ETF. The good news is, whether or not we get the approval anytime soon, most likely going into next year, you can see what price action is going to do. So it's kind of making it easy for everybody. The question is, do you want to get in here if you're not in? Because you could potentially return to some of these lows here for a little while until the approval comes. But once that approval comes, it definitely looks like there's going to be some explosive price action. So something to keep an eye on there in terms of whether or not you want exposure to Bitcoin when the ETF comes out, and Ethereum. Ethereum could have more exponential upside potentially than Bitcoin, as well as the altcoins. Everything will explode at once, just like we've seen across the board. So you're kind of getting a little inside hint of what's going to happen when these ETFs approvals are announced, because they will all get approved. You'll see some explosive price action. You just got to make sure that you're aware of it and take your chips off the table and bank some of those profits along the way. So these are the things I'm looking at. See you in the next video.